Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Springfield City Hall. We have a regular City Council meeting scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock. In advance of that, we have a public speak out and then some proclamations to honor some residents for distinguished service to our community. So we'll start with public speak out. Our first speaker is Mr. Brian Collins regarding American Legion Post 21. Mr. Collins, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Tonight I'm here on a mission to try and collect funds to send our boys down to Gastonia, North Carolina this summer, as Gastonia came up here last summer along with their mayor and a written letter of apology to the city of Springfield for what happened in 1934. So we are trying to raise enough money through donations. And actually, I got this idea from Mayor Bridgman from Gastonia. And that's how they raise funds to bring their teams up, by going to the city mothers and fathers and getting donations. I have priced out the passage per team member on the train would be $200 round trip. And there will be two teams and coaches. It's about 45 people that we need passage for. I think we're going to be okay with places with the lodging. They're going to try and work a deal with one of the local colleges, like we were able to with Western New England last summer for them. So, but in order to get there, we need some money. So this is in remembrance of probably Springfield's finest moment in history, when a group of 15 and 16-year-old boys were in a far-off and unfamiliar place with a coach and a manager, and there was death threats on them because they had one black player on the team. And they were told that if he was to play, that none of their parents would ever see him again. They would be taken out in the woods. This was 1934. This was a serious threat. It wasn't an idle threat. So the coach told the team, it's up to you, fellas. Do you want to play without Bunny Taliaferro? You want to withdraw? You go in the room and you make your decision. And Mr. King, Tony King, who's still with us, as a matter of fact, we celebrated his 98th birthday, January 29th at Pottinger School. The kids had a nice birthday party for him. And he's still with us. Well, he was the captain of that team, and suggestion was that they forfeit the game and return home to Springfield if Mr. Taliaferro couldn't play. None of them would play because they believed in what they were taught in school, that everybody was created equal and there was no difference in this, and they just refused to do it. As Judge Keyes told me himself, who's now passed away, we didn't do it because it was the right thing. We did it because it was the only thing to do. Yeah. They withdrew and gave up their chance at a national championship, which made their record 25-1. It was their only loss. Yeah. But they were the greatest Legion team in the history of Legion baseball for what they did that day, standing up for their teammate. It's never too young. Okay. You're never too young to know what you stand for. They were 15 and 16 when they did this. So we feel that since the mayor of Gastonia, North Carolina, reached out to our Mayor Sarno with a letter of apology for the incident that happened years and years ago, and they came up here, we feel that we need to do the return trip down there. So I'm here on behalf of the Legion program. I'm asking all the city mothers and fathers I believe everybody has a sheet. Did everybody get this sheet with an address?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. And we're asking each of you to sponsor one player, which would be $200 apiece for each player. And we we have, my good friend Ben Schwan is setting up a gathering of the Springfield delegation, so I can meet with all those folks at once, and we're going to make the same request to them.
Want the checks, baby.
And the school committee as well on this Thursday night. And we have letters in to some corporate people that we're hoping to hear from and to finance this trip. This is a very important part of Springfield's history. So,
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Councilor Williams.
Thank you. I want to thank Brian for coming down and keeping the dream going. And I think sometimes Brian kind of like underplays what really happened. This was long before Brown versus Brown Board of Education. This goes way back, 1934, where you had a bunch of young men from Springfield led by Judge Keyes and Tony King, who was the captain, that stood up to racism. They stood up to racism in 1934 on their own free will. It's really a big deal, and I've been very fortunate to know Tony and talk to Tony and Brian to keeping the dream going. But we need to, gentlemen and ladies, we need to all make some kind of contribution, and I will reach out to the business community for you. Brian has done a tremendous job keeping this going. But that was not only an eye-opening for Springfield, it was eye-opening in the country, in Gastonia, North Carolina, where this took place. And Henry Twiggs knows better than me, in some of the most racist, bigoted people in the South you ever wanted to meet. Bull Connors and likes of those. And Governor Wallace, likes of those. And these kids stood up. 1934. So Tony, I keep calling you Tony, Brian, thank you, and give Tony my best when you see him. But certainly, you can look forward to me to help you, and I'll reach out to Ben to do what we can do.
I thank you very much. Thank you very much. Once again, I can't say it strongly enough. This is probably Springfield's finest hour in history. And they were 15 and 16 years old, really ambassadors for the city of Springfield. So we don't want to let this go. A couple years back, they wrote a book about this, the team and the story, and the professor that wrote it has been doing a lot of read-alouds in the school. We did one at Mr. King's birthday party at Pottinger School that the children had for him. And a little boy, so he said to the little boy, geez, I don't know why I'm still around anyway, because he's the only survivor. And the little boy raised his hand, and Mayor Sarno called on him, and he stood up and he says, you're still around because God loves you and we love you too. So the kids are getting the story. It's not disappearing. The superintendent put 2 of those books in every elementary school, and I've done 50 read-alouds in the last 2 years, and the kids understand the story. It's a great teaching tool. So once again, I thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Mr. President, I think this is a wonderful project. I'd be happy to work with my colleague, Councilor Williams, to support it. It's a great moment in Springfield history, and I've attended many of the events that you've had, some of the games at Forest Park, but I was also here when the delegation came from North Carolina, and they were delighted to be here, and Mr. King was there. I think he was only 96 then.
Yes,
and,
he was.
So I think it's great, and I think it's wonderful that you're keeping this story alive and presenting it to our school children, because we don't want to forget our history.
It's a big part of Springfield's history.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, our next public speaker is Frank Sincata. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, City Council members. We are here today representing the now 21 organizations that make up the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition, and we are deeply concerned about the health of Springfield residents and the sustainability of our planet. We sent you all a letter last week, and before some of our members come up and speak more specifically on why taking action on this matter now is so important, I just want to reiterate some of the points that were made in that letter that you all received last week. So in 2014, we worked with you and supported you in your unanimous passage of the Springfield Climate Action Resolution, which called for the creation of a climate action plan and an office to oversee its implementation. In 2015, with no funding produced by the city to make good the promise of the resolution, we rallied again and presented hundreds of written requests for for action to clean the air and cut the city's carbon emissions. Earlier this year, the city was awarded $17 million in a federal resiliency grant to provide infrastructure improvements both to adapt to climate change and to mitigate climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Funds for a process of creating a climate change plan were included in that grant. We congratulate you on this wonderful breakthrough for the city and for recognizing the need to face the threat of a chaotic and warming climate. We worked with city planners in the creation of the grant proposal and are thoroughly delighted that Springfield, which suffered the terrible damage of Hurricane Irene and the tornado of June 1st, 2011, has recognized the city's vulnerability to global warming. We are here today to further request that you ensure that the funds from this grant and future grants be directed to the original purpose that we presented to you 2 years ago. We ask that a climate action office and plan for the city be established and implemented so that Springfield can become a leader in the struggle to ensure the health of its residents and to decrease its greenhouse gas emissions. Money from the present grant should be applied to initiate this effort, and more funds must be secured through grants or through set-asides in the city budget. Low-income communities and communities of color have been historically underserved and underrepresented in planning for change in this country, and especially in Springfield. These communities are also the most polluted and most dangerous communities in our city. The costs of transportation, electricity, and heating are disproportionately higher than they are in other communities. And of course, low-income and communities of color suffer significantly higher levels of unemployment, underemployment, and low wages. So we ask that you represent their interests and engage their participation as you address resiliency, pollution, and climate change. We ask that you involve them in every step of implementing this and future grants, and that you take bold steps to address economic and racial injustice, even as you clean our air and make our city safer. I want to thank you for your work, and we remain dedicated to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Marty Nathan. Mr. Nathan? Miss Nathan. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marty Nathan, and I'm a family physician at Bay State Brightwood Health Center. And I'm here also to talk about the resiliency grant, and I thank you very much for giving us the chance to speak. I'm here tonight to congratulate you, too, the City of Springfield, on the city's receipt of the National Disaster Resiliency Grant from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. Bay State Brightwood, as part of the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition, was pleased to be supportive in the grant application process. We gave that support because children and adults in the North End suffer disproportionately from asthma and chronic respiratory disease that are the result of the pollution that fills the air in the North End from transportation and industry. Every day, I treat people of all ages that can't breathe because air pollution has caused them to wheeze and to cough. That pollution is also the source of climate change that is linked to Hurricanes Sandy and Irene and other severe storms that threaten and have affected our city. To combat that pollution is a matter of public health to which Brightwood Health Center has always been dedicated. We congratulate you on receiving the grant, but we also requested in the process of implementing the grant that you fulfill your pledge to the community in the form of the Springfield Climate Action Resolution passed 2 years ago and develop a climate change mitigation plan and an office to enforce it, thereby combating the threats to our community's health and to the planet. Further, we ask that you ensure that with the grant and with others, you serve the population that is most at risk from pollution, climate change, and all the diseases of poverty. That you reach out to the poor people in neighborhoods of color for oversight of the grant activity, hire from that community, and serve the needs of that community. We need economic development for our health and cleaner and safer neighborhoods as part of the transition to a fossil fuel-free economy. We call this climate justice, and we know that you agree that it must be intrinsic to the city's approach to cleaning its air and becoming resilient to climate change. And I thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor.
Our next speaker is Yvette Hernandez. Ms. Hernandez?
Hello. My name is Yvette Hernandez. I'm a resident from 27 Newland Street in Springfield here in the North End. I'm here with my son Moses and my grandbaby Micah. I'm here as a member, of Springfield Climate Justice Coalition, the Green Committee, Keep Springfield Beautiful, and Neighbor to Neighbor. I'm also a social worker, a mom, and a grandma. And as a mom, 2 out of 3 of my kids suffered from severe asthma. My home, we've always lived in the North End, and it wasn't until recently that I learned how drastic the amount of asthma cases are in the North End. That took a toll as a mom on how, the times that I had to take from work to attend to my kids, the time that my kids had to take from school to be always in the doctor's office. I urge you to please work together and to work together with the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition and adhere by the demands of the coalition so that we can improve the environment, especially in the North End. My grandbaby is almost at risk of getting asthma. His amount of times that he starts getting a cold is just getting worse and worse, and this is the same with many of the residents in the North End. And I pledge you that with many of the organizations that are part of the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition working on the environmental issues, we have what it takes to be able to improve our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice.
Our next speaker is Michael Ann Busey. Good evening.
I don't want to be too repetitive, and I do know that the Springfield City Council is not in charge of adding items to the city budget. But those of you that have acceptable relationships with Mayor Sarno, I'm asking you to please to raise this issue, that we need a climate justice coordinator. We need a dedicated position to oversee environmental issues in Springfield. In many ways, Springfield is already a leader. Some of the departments in Springfield are doing really cutting-edge work, in particular Parks and Recreation, and Pat Sullivan has been doing lots of great work without anybody asking him to, and I'm really glad that we're working with him on developing the climate action plan. But I just want to give you one example. A climate change coordinator would not just be overseeing what Springfield, the city of, is doing, but also what the rest of the community is doing. I have some maps here for you. They illustrate the placement of the 608 methane leaks from Columbia Gas in the city of Springfield.
Thank you very much.
These methane leaks contribute to climate change. They contribute to pollution. I'm sure someone is talking to Columbia Gas, especially after what happened at Worthington Street a few years back. But this is just one of the major issues that a climate justice coordinator would be able to address. So please use your influence with Mayor Sarno to make sure that this item is on his agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Varn McAllister.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Vern MacArthur.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Resident of Springfield. Resident of Springfield and member of the steering committee of the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition. representing the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Springfield and the Pioneer Valley Project. I believe that this is a moment and this is an issue when we must intentionally keep in mind our grandchildren and their children and their children. You may know that among many Native peoples, whenever there's the centuries-old principle that when critical decisions are made, you must keep in mind the fifth generation unborn, which is a powerful statement as to the consequences of decisions made in the short term over the long term, and a powerful statement of accountability to life in the future. And I believe that the issue of climate change and environmental degradation is such an issue. I mention it in part because the impacts of climate change tend to unfold gradually and are so often mixed with and disguised by seasonal variations in climate events. Rude awakenings like a tornado in Springfield are rare. Also, there are so many pressing issues that face you and us in Springfield, demanding immediate attention. Yet climate change impacts are accumulating now and will eventually tend to dwarf these other urgent issues. So we need to work to stay as far in front of climate change impacts as we can. We cannot delay, we need to make the right decisions, we need to make them soon. So I urge you, all of us, to keep our grandchildren in mind as the world we are leaving for them and the world we are leaving for them each step we take. This will take conscious, intentional effort in the face of other demanding needs. So I want to thank you, we want to thank you for continuing your Green Committee. An active Green Committee is essential to informed and effective action by the Council, to keep this issue and needed actions in front of the Council, keep connected to the community on climate actions, to push and work with the city administration to do what needs to be done. So we urge you to support it, listen to it, hold it accountable. We certainly will. Again, also I want to acknowledge the work of Pat Sullivan and the Public and Parks and Rec Department. We've been working with him on developing the climate plan and done an amazing job of getting in compliance with Green City expectations and greening organically parks and rec fields. A really enlightened and committed activist.
Thank you.
But he will also tell you that so much more needs to be done. We need more. We need the central planning and coordination that can only come from a city climate action office and a plan. So we ask you to work with us to push for taking this critical step in being better prepared to meet the ongoing challenges of climate change.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Anne Marie Pager regarding the Senior Center. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm here. I'm president of the Springfield Golden Age Club. And I'm here to present some petitions for naming the Springfield Senior Center, which is supposed to be built in Blunt Park in a couple of years. We were never consulted as far as naming it, and our seniors in Springfield Golden Age Club especially, they're upset. I'm the president, and I was never even consulted to see what they wanted to name it. Our contention is we want to call it the Springfield Senior Center, not anybody else's. It doesn't matter, dead or alive, we just want to call it. You look around, Wilbraham, Agawam, Holyoke. Nobody has any politician's name in it. It's Agawam Senior Center, Holyoke Senior Center, Chicopee Senior Center, and that's all we want to do. And the reason we're bringing the petition tonight is because Mayor Sarno would not accept them, which I think is an insult to us on top of it, because he accepted a partition from one of the senior centers. He would not accept ours. And even if it's not going to be changed, we just want to make our voices heard and say, look, if you do something like this, at least have the courtesy to ask us what we think about it. And that's pretty much it. So if you don't mind,
thank you very much.
300 signatures. Thank you.
Councilor Ramos.
Just very quick question. Have you presented this petition to the Parks Department? I believe they're the ones who made the decision, took the vote to name the building. Have you presented this petition to the Parks Department?
No, did you do that? No. Are we going to do that?
I believe it was the Parks Department who.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathleen Murphy.
Yes, good
Good
evening.
evening, Mrs. Murphy.
I'm here as well. That I'm upset by Mayor Sarno. He refused, he ignored us, he refused to see us or accept our petition. Brian Santinello in the Park Department didn't respond to my calls, which tells me he didn't want to see me either. So we did do our petition. Seniors are very upset. And you, as a governing body for the city of Springfield, need to put something in place where they don't go around sticking names on any building, anyone they want. If you work for the city, you get a salary, you don't volunteer. You get paid, you're not a volunteer. There are a lot more people more worthy of having their name on this senior center than the gentleman is getting it. We never saw him at a senior gathering. He had no interest in this. That's what shocked me. We had so many other people that I wouldn't agree to anyways. We just want a Springfield Senior Center. 30 years ago, I boarded a bus with 29 other people. There are only 2 of us left now, myself and Rudy Ruggiero, who lets you know that he's very upset about this. And the other 38 are gone, God rest their souls. So I would hope that you would do 2 things, that you would see that it would be Springfield Senior Center, and that you would put up a law and somehow that they cannot go around, I don't care who they are, that they can't go around and start changing names on buildings, certainly without consulting the neighbors. So thank you very much.
About how many people have signed the petition, Mrs. Murphy?
Pardon me?
About how many people have signed
We
it?
had 200, 300 and...
We're going to make a copy of it and distribute it to the council.
336.
And we'll send a copy to the Parks Commission and the mayor.
Okay, I was gonna suggest that.
Everyone around the city, and we went to all parts of the city, they're upset. What does the Park Department have to do with the senior center?
Well, the senior center's in a public park, so that's why the decision to name it would be made by the board of the park commissioners.
That's not their park.
It's Plum Park.
Somebody needs to straighten this out.
We're getting copies of the petition made right now. Thank you very much, Mrs. Murphy and Ms. Page. Okay, our final speaker this evening is Mr. Russell Seelig. Mr. Seelig.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah. What's this for?
Good evening. My name is Russell Seelig. I live at 38 Oxford Street in Springfield, and I'm here on a perennial mission, and that perennial mission is to talk about the undervaluation of billboards and cell towers in Springfield. As some of you know, I am a DOR certified assessor. It's my estimate that the billboards in the city are now valued at about 1/3 of their fair cash value, which is the gold standard for property valuations in the city. This undervaluation is costing the city millions of dollars in tax revenue each year. You now have in front of you a one-page tabulation of a parcel along Interstate 91 that has 10 billboards on it. The rental rate that's on the internet by Lamar is $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year per face for each face. So a gross potential income of $720,000. If we allow some discounts off that, which would not be unusual, and allow for some expenses on the part of Lamar to maintain their billboards. The net income is estimated at just over $600,000 a year, which when capitalized at a nominal rate yields a valuation of close to $7 million compared to the assessor's valuation of just over $2 million for the 10 billboards on the parcel, for a loss in potential tax revenue of just under $200,000 a year. And there are about 150 billboards in the city. So these 10 represent a small fraction of the 150 that are in the city. In addition, for this 8+ acre parcel, the land value is minuscule compared to all the other adjacent parcels. In fact, 15 years ago, the land value was almost $1 million, and over the recent years, the land value was reduced to just $50,000 by some mysterious manipulation of value in an apparent effort to reduce the property tax burden to the owner of the parcel. It's well known that some companies, such as Lamar, the owner of these billboards, use a variety of financial influences to further their own interests. Noteworthy are those former Massachusetts legislators who are now in jail, New York State legislators in jail. Rhode Island has its own Buddy Cianci history. So it's time to clean up the valuations of the various billboard parcels in the city, fatten the coffers of the city, and provide property tax equity for all the property owners whose properties are valued at 100% of fair cash value. I'm not sure what the city council might do, but thank you for listening. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public speak out. Before we start our meeting, we have the great privilege of honoring a son of Springfield and former Springfield City Councilor himself, Angelo Pupolo, with the proclamation. Councilor Ash, you have the floor.
No Boston today?
2 minutes each. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I was able to go to the Unico dinner the other night, Saturday night, where Angelo Pupolo was honored as the Unico Person of the Year, and I can tell to the membership here that it was a great crowd. It was a great evening. Unfortunately, they cut the speaking portion in half, and they started to have dinner, and I had to leave, so I wasn't able to stay and read this proclamation from the council. But I just wanted to say on a personal level, Angelo, thank you for all your work, not just in the Italian American community, but obviously in the greater Springfield area as well. You've dedicated a good chunk of your life to public service, and I know that we're all better because of it. And thank you very much for everything that you do and everything that you continue to do. So with that, Mr. President, I will kind of paraphrase a little bit, but whereas Angelo's commitment to people and his community, and especially his dedication to his Italian heritage, is perfectly illustrated by his numerous memberships at many civic associations and groups, including Springfield Unico for over 24 years, serving on the board of directors, and as a vice president, Italian Cultural Center, Springfield Elk Lodge 61, Knights of Columbus, Italian American Vets, and many, many more. And whereas Angelo is devoted to his wife Isabel and 2 daughters, Julia and Olivia, along with their dog Zippy, and is a proud son of Laura Pupolo and the late Angelo Duffy Pupolo and brother to Maria Ann. Whereas Angelo's unselfish devotion to people and truly exemplary of Unico's service above self creed, and he is richly deserving of being named Unico's 2015 Person of the Year. Angelo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have instructions to keep it for 2 minutes for my dear friend Angelo. I just want to, my son's birthday was the same day, and they had a party. I really wanted to get there for Angelo. But as Tom said, Angelo really old school, going back to his father. He started as a plumber, and he worked his way right through law school, day and night, and has elevated himself in terms of being a model citizen for the city. And I can tell you, a very proud family man. I went to his wedding. And he does one thing, Mr. President. I'm not casting any aspersions on anyone else. If you call Angelo with a problem, he gets back to you. He might not be right away, but he always gets back. So I like the constituent service. I served with him for 10 years in this body, and he was one of the best that ever did it here. I never imagined how you escaped all those votes, but you managed to do it.
Always here for the tough ones, Counselor, like you. Yeah. You know that.
Yeah. But I just want to commend you. Really, it's a great honor for you, and I know you work extremely hard.
Thank
you
you.
really do, and you're model citizens for this city. Very proud to call you my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Sir.
And I would just also like to add, and we'll have Councilor Twiggs in a moment, but in addition to what Councilors Williams and Ash indicated, I'm really proud of all the work that Angelo has done on behalf of the city of Springfield. He is, a part of what many of us consider to be Team Springfield.
Yeah.
I see him out there in the community, not just with constituent services, but at Falcons games with his daughters, and really being an active member of the Springfield community, living in East Forest Park. He stayed here. He's a part of our community and our team, and I'm personally really proud to have him go from being a member of this council and succeeding to higher office on Beacon Hill as a state rep. So I would be remiss if I didn't add those comments. But Councilor Twiggs?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I also like to just add what Councilor Ahmed and Councilor Williams said to this esteemed member, former member of this body. He is a hard-working person, and he has earned the right for any honor that we give to him. You probably know he's probably a better plumber than he is. That is electricity, yes. But funny element again, when he said that if you call him, he'll always get back to you. It's a hallmark of being a good legislator. That is the follow through on your constituents' needs. He trained a former member of this body who's no longer with us, but apparently he didn't listen to you. He's no longer with us. What's his name, buddy?
Well, when you're out, Counselor. That's it, right?
Jane Ferrara. Councilman Ferrara.
To say the least, we're so very happy to see you elevate. I mean, you continue to move up the ladder. You had an opportunity to run for state senate and didn't, because you wanted to continue to serve your constituents locally, and you've done a marvelous job, and I'm very pleased and honored for you to say that you might listen to it also. Hang in there.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your work.
Thank you,
Oh, very nice.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So Councilor Ash will present the proclamation, and Rep. Pupolo, I know you're not used to being on the other side of this bar, but if you'd like to say a few words, we'd invite you to do that after we get our photo opportunity, courtesy of Spirit of Springfield.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just say at the onset, I know Councilor Ash read the citation. So in addition to my wife who runs the house, it's Zippy who really is in charge of everything over there. That's for sure. But seriously, it's an honor and privilege for me to be here tonight. First and foremost, obviously it was an honor and privilege to get the Person of the Year award from Springfield Unico. It meant a lot to me, and if you look at the number of people, the list of people who received that award over the years, certainly it's a tremendous amount of people who are not only pillars in the Italian-American community, but pillars in the community at large. So long list of people. I'm very, very fortunate to be considered among them, and certainly it's an honor to be bestowed on me and my family. And this certainly is a great honor for me to get this official citation proclamation from the Springfield City Council. Mr. President, as you know, and all of the councilors, I sat where you were for almost a little over 9 years, almost 10 years. It was a great opportunity. This is where I started my political career 20 years ago. You may not think that.
Wow.
Kind of have to keep my hair real short to keep the grays out. So, Mr. President, don't stay too long, because you'll have gray hair too. But seriously, it's where I started my political career, and certainly it's very, very special and near and dear to my heart. This was always, the front line, still is the front line. You guys do a yeoman's job in terms of making sure the citizens of Springfield are heard. So when you talk about constituent service, that's where I started. And I know each and every one of you, when I was on the council, we only had 9 at large, but now there's the blend of at large and ward. But I know each and every one of you take that very, very seriously. So whether you're elected at large or whether you're elected from a ward, I think each and every one of the citizens are very fortunate to have such a very dedicated and committed body of each and every one of you. I see you guys out in the community, Mr. President. You say you see me out there. I see everybody at all these events too. They're ambassadors of the city of Springfield, making sure that the good work that's done in this chambers and outside this chambers is spread around throughout the community. I was just at an event right at 1350 Main Street with Councilor Walsh was there. A number of my colleagues as well. We had a tremendous event. Anita Walker was there from the Mass Cultural Council, and the mayor I know participated in a tour earlier in the day with a number of people showcasing, and I think that's critically important, showcasing the great things that are going on in the city of Springfield. That's what I try to do as a city councilor. That's what I continue to do as a state rep. And I know that's what each and every one of you do each and every day for the city of Springfield. So I commend you for that. This is something very, very near and dear to me. I'm going to hang it on my State House wall in Boston. Nice. For those who come in to see, and certainly be very proud of that. So again, this is very, very special to me, and it won't go unnoticed. And Mr. President, I thank you, and I know that you were going to come to the event, and being half Italian, that's a very key asset. Now, if you were there, we might not have cut the speaking program since Tommy Ash was there. He figured, all right, so he's the Irishman. That's where we're going to take the. That's where we're going to take the break. But that wasn't my call, seriously. But again, Mr. President, thank you for this great honor. Councilors, thank you for standing up and certainly recognizing me, and thank you for this proclamation. And again, I'm going to continue to do the best that I can in working with you and continue on the good work that we've started and continue to do. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we are going to call this meeting to order. I am starting this very late tonight, so I am going to make it up to everybody by moving through some of this early stuff pretty quick. So, the council and our guests could please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Justin Hurst. Present. Kenny Shea. Absent. E. Henry Twiggs.
Henry, that's Ken Shea. No, Ken Shea's in the second seat.
She said Ken Shea, absent.
And Henry was just here.
He's not.
Absent. Absent Timothy A. C. Allen.
Present.
Present Timothy J. Rook. Present Bud L. Williams.
Here.
Present Orlando Ramos.
Present.
Present Marcus Williams.
Present.
Present Adam Gomez.
Present.
Present Timothy M. Ash.
Close enough. Here.
Melvin Edwards.
Present.
Present Kateri B. Walsh.
Here.
Present Michael Fenton.
Present. Will the council and our guests please rise for a moment of silence? Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to inform the council that Councilor Kenneth Shea is not going to be with us this evening. He called me and he has another personal commitment. Will the clerk please recognize the councilor in seat number 3?
E. Henry Twiggs.
Okay, so we're going to start with agenda item number 1. This is a hearing. This matter was tabled at our last hearings meeting. as an accommodation to the business owner who would like to get moving and get open. We have scheduled this at Councilor Gomez's recommendation for this evening. So, Madam Clerk, if you could please call the first item.
Yes, first item is 419 Taylor Street, the Erin.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Good evening, sir. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
President.
Gomez, yes.
No, I know that Aqua contacted Mr. Dromey.
Yes.
And they have no issues with us moving forward. They fully support it. And I called the gentleman in to make sure that we can move forward, so we didn't have to wait 3 more weeks for him to start. You know, it's hard for small business to get started. I just want to make sure that he just gets the full support and make sure that he can get his business going.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Say again, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Hearing none, that closes this portion of the hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Thank you, sir. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Last call. Seeing none, that closes this portion of the hearing and the hearing. Madam Clerk, roll call is required. I'm granting the special permit.
Justin Erst?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Shea. Absent, Councilor Twiggs?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash? Yes. Yes, Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton?
Yes, more than sufficient. Councilor Hurst on the reasons.
A specific site is an appropriate location for such a use, structure, or condition. The use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation and proposed use. To incorporate the planning staff analysis into the decision at the basis of the findings.
All those in favor of the condition say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Special permit is granted. Congratulations. Thank you for your patience with us. Okay. Do we have any reports of committee this evening? Councilor Allen.
Yes, Mr. President, I have a report of the Finance Committee. Tonight's agenda will go through 20 financial items are on the agenda tonight, grants and financial orders. We will talk, the members of the Finance Committee that were there were Councilor Twiggs and myself. Councilor Edwards also joined us. There are many matters tonight that we probably need to discuss a little bit, but generally we had a good feeling towards most of the items. And we took a vote and Councilor Twiggs made a motion that we accept the items, and I went along with it. But I will say that there are some items that we ran out of time to discuss, and there are probably some at the end. So generally, the Finance Committee met. I met with TJ beforehand, and then we met as a committee, and there were 10 or 12 people there. So we have a pretty good feeling about the items tonight on the agenda, and I'd like to talk about them as they come up.
Great.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all those in favor of accepting the report of committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Any other reports of committee? Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item that we had was a distressed properties grant, which was tabled at our last meeting. This grant was for $95,000, and I think there were some questions around where the money would go, what neighborhoods it would go to revitalize. And based off of our meeting, this $95,000 is going to staff, and so it's going to fund a staff position, which is a senior program manager. One good thing about this is that they will be following the residency clause, and so that was pretty significant, and it also will be posted very shortly. This is a position that was filled 2 years ago based off of grant funding. The grant funding is now being renewed, and as a committee, we fully supported this, and we hope that you guys will support it as well. Councilor Williams was there, Councilor Twiggs was present, Councilor Edwards was present, Councilor Walsh, and I believe Councilor Rook were present as well. Councilor Allen, sorry about that. And then the second item is the appointment to the License Commission. It is we had Colonel Sine, and Colonel Sine, you can certainly stand and come to the podium at this point in time. Is that okay?
Sure. We'll take it out of order once we do the report.
Sounds good. Colonel Sine, I'll say what I said to you at the committee meeting. Colonel Sine has served for over 30 years in the armed forces. He also is a veteran of Vietnam, which for those of you who know my family is very near and dear to our heart. He in turn now wants to give back to his community, and what I told Colonel Sine is that he's already given all the service that he could possibly give to this country. And so the fact that he wants to give back to his community at this point in time is really just icing on the cake. And we're very appreciative to have Colonel Sine step up to the plate. I went to school with his sons, who certainly were just great individuals and grew up to be great young men. And that is a credit to Colonel Sine and his wife as well. So we approved Colonel Sine unanimously, and we're hopeful that you will do the same.
All those in favor of accepting the report of committee, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, can we take item number 3 out of order, please? Confirmation of Colonel Sine. If you could call item number 3, Madam Clerk.
I have here appointment of Ronald G. Sinez, confirmation to the License Commissions.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend Councilor Hurst for moving on this matter in a quick fashion. And Colonel Sine, I always thought he was a general.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
See, shame on me.
Would you please recommend Congress to that?
Mr. President, when you talk about a scholar and a gentleman, this is what you have with this gentleman. And certainly, he's an independent man. He'll do his own thing. I had a couple of questions. They're very pointed questions. The mayor has proposed on certain occasions a blanket policy that, in my estimation, penalizes every bar and restaurant in the total city. The waterfront, down on the riverfront, East Forest Park, Indian Orchard, Hungry Hill, Outer Belt, some restaurants and bars that would have been penalized, in my estimation, by the policies of this blanket approach. And I asked him very pointedly, will you eyeball this from yourself, call like you see it? He said absolutely. Doesn't believe in this blanket policy to just penalize everyone. But the bad apples, go after the bad apples. We know the bad apples in the city of Springfield. There's 4 or 5 bars are the bad apples. We don't penalize the other 99, 95% of bar and restaurant owners. So I was very pleased that he will be independent. He'll take a good business approach, look at it. And I cheerfully support this nominee, and we know that he will do the right thing. Thank you.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise to support the nomination of Colonel Sine. I think his background, his service to our country should be applauded, but the skills that he brings from being in the military for so long, leadership, decision-making, fairness, I think they are going to be you will be a wonderful asset to the License Commission, and we wish you a wonderful experience on that board. Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you. Councilor Twiggs.
Mr. President, I also rise, having met Colonel Sine for the first time tonight, sat in on the committee meeting, and I just wanted to listen to see who this gentleman was. I know how important the License Commission is to us. And after listening to him, well, for about 5 or 10 minutes, outline his background in the military and the number of people that he supervised in different parts of the country, the world, as far as that goes. But one of the things that stuck out to me, quite obvious, is when I took a seat near him, he reached out and introduced himself to me prior to speaking. And I said to myself, this is an officer and a gentleman, and it stuck home because, you know, the military teaches you how to be a good officer and a gentleman, and I spoke to him in that regard, and I told him there was very few of us left who are officers and a gentleman. He agreed. I see a young man out here who is an officer, the gentleman, Mr. Brown, but well, you're a gentleman, you might not be an officer. But I just got such a warm feeling, and after Councilor Williams asked him the question about the fairness, you know, to all bars, that it's not fair to close all of the bars because of one bad apple. And I indicated that not often that I agree, you know, wholeheartedly with the mayor, but he made a good appointment this time, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilor Allen.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate what Councilor Hurst and Councilor Twigg said. I'm also on that committee and was there for the whole meeting, and Mr. Sine was, or Colonel Sine was very impressive in his answers and his application of talking about both flexibility and respect for the office and respect for the rules. And I think we need that kind of flexibility on that board, because as we know, that the things that come before that board, before that commission, can be controversial. And I believe that he's the type of individual who will have the respect of his peers and also the experience to deal with the tough situations that may come up. So I also endorse his selection.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thanks. I don't often speak. When I see Ron Sine, I think of integrity and character. He has a proven track record of positive influence over the last 30 years in the city of Springfield. He's been a volunteer at the Pancake Breakfast for I don't know how many years, the balloons. He's a co-pilot with Mike Wallace, and they had a tremendous trip one year with an interesting outcome. A great family man, a great grandfather. Can't think of a more qualified person to represent the city of Springfield. So I'm happy to endorse your candidacy and very grateful that you accepted it.
Colonel, would you like to say a few words?
Just I appreciate those kind words, and I appreciate everyone's support. I'm a 45-year resident of this city. This is my city, right or wrong, and I believe this city's heading in the right direction. And I see a lot of good things, and I gave back to my country for 34 years. It's time for me to give back to my city. And I have two sons that still live here that are raising their children in this city. And I'm here for the duration, and I believe we're going to make it a better place, and I'm going to do everything I can to make Springfield a better place to live.
Thanks,
and again, I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
What a classy guy.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please, and the appointment.
The appointment of Ronald Sines to the License Commission, Justin Erst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Shea. Absent, Councilor Twiggs.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes. More than sufficient. Appointment is confirmed. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now I have to get my grandchildren home.
Okay, do we have any other reports of committee this evening? Okay, seeing none. I was remiss, councilors, earlier this evening in not recognizing Ludlow School Committee person Chip Harrington for joining us tonight. Good evening, Chip. Thank you. If we have no other reports of committee, we'll take item number 2, please, Madam Clerk. Revenue and expenditure report.
Report for revenue and expenditure.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight in front of you have the January revenue and expenditure report. It represents 7 months of the fiscal year, and our revenues are currently outpacing our expenditures by just a little over $4 million.
Questions from the council? Councilor Williams?
Just when you say we're outpacing the revenues by $4 million, what does that mean?
Right now we have a surplus of $4 million. Our revenues are exceeding our expenditures through January.
And if that pace continues to June, then is that a surplus?
Yes, and that would become part of the free cash certification.
Free cash certification. All right. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of receiving the report say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay.
Mr. President, is there an order with the report of committee for the $95,000 grant? Are you taking that up tonight?
Is that from Council Hurst Committee?
I believe so.
Yes. Would you like to take that at this time?
Yeah, that was.
Yes. Okay. I don't see a 95.
It's under the attachment with the License Commission appointment.
Oh, yeah. Small print.
$95,000 grant, front page 3. It's a slash, I don't know if that's. Item 3, attachment, resume, mayor's letter, license.
Yes, I see that, but there wouldn't be a grant attached to an appointment. That's why
I don't know. That's $95,000.
What department was it for, Counselor? But what the $95,000 grant? What department was that for? Do you remember?
Housing.
Is that your grant, Jerry? Do you know what agenda item number it is?
I don't seem to have the same agenda.
You don't see it on the agenda. Neither do I. Can we have maybe a 30-second recess to figure this out? Can we have a motion to that effect?
Motion. So moved.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Doesn't it usually come out as a report of committee? Yeah, but there's usually an item attached. Yeah.
But I don't think it did come up. You know how it is when you get old, you have the double knee surgery.
Okay, we're going to conclude that recess. We've gotten to the bottom of it. The matter is not on your agendas because it was referred to committee at our last regular meeting. Council Hurst is now bringing it back out of committee. It's a $95,000 grant regarding a homeless initiative. Ms. McCafferty, if you'd like to speak to it briefly, we can approve it.
Hi, Jerry McCafferty, Director of Housing. It's actually not a homelessness initiative. It's a distressed property identification and revitalization program grant. It's a grant from the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. It is to give us staffing to be able to track and respond to vacant and abandoned properties. We primarily use it to staff our work around receivership.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Mr. President, on the residency, and I know what you said in the committee they're going to hire Springfield people. Who enforces your compliance to these positions in general? I mean, who would be? Is it Mahoney? Does he?
Human Resources, yes.
So they'd have to go through Mahoney.
Yes, we have Human Resources has a regular hiring process. I need to submit a request to hire to Mr. Mahoney and the Personnel Review Committee. Once they approve it, it is posted officially with all other city jobs, and as all city jobs are posted, my understanding is they include the language that there is a residency requirement.
Is there a provision for waivers within this policy, to your knowledge?
To tell you the truth, I don't know the current status of waivers for people who are being hired. I don't think I can't think of anyone that I've been involved with the hiring of who has not been a city resident.
Mm-hmm. And Mahoney checks that periodically? I mean, like every year they have to fill out?
So every year, everyone who works for the city is required to, and we just did it this week, required to certify that they are a resident or they have a waiver.
Okay.
And they have to provide documentation of the waiver if that's the case.
Since the residency is on the agenda tonight, I was hoping that, is Mr. Mahoney going to be here tonight? To our knowledge? I don't see him. Okay. Maybe not, I don't know.
Any other questions on the grant? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, just for clarity purposes, that is the $95,000 grant that was referred to committee at the last regular meeting. So thank you, Councilor Walsh, for pointing that out and helping us rectify that. Okay. Item number 4, Madam Clerk.
We have here a private number, Department of Public Works, Street Acceptance Plan, Bellamy Road, Wilbraham Road to Fairlawn Street.
Okay. All those in favor of receiving the report say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 5.
Oh, these are just reports.
I have here Forest Park CMA project.
What is this, Madam Clerk?
It's from Columbia Gas, Forest Park CMA project.
Okay. All those in favor of receiving the report say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, item number 6.
This is an NDRC grant of $17,056,880.
Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. This begins 20 financial items in a row, 12 grants and 8 financial orders, and probably a more extensive financial agenda than we normally have. I think this is the right place to start. It's obviously the next item, and this is the $17 million grant that was received when the city applied for 50 some odd million for disaster recovery, etc. This is what was awarded, and from what I understand, I will call people up here in a second, that we asked for many different things in that grant, and it was HUD's choice as to what they picked and gave to us. It wasn't our choice. There are 4 pieces to this grant, the $17 million, which are being asked to approve, and I know there are some questions about it. I did meet on it a couple times today already, but I expect there will be some good questions. And Tina is managing the grant. I'd like to call Tina up, and anyone else she feels should come along with her to help out.
How do you determine who's...
Ms. Quagliata. Good evening.
Hi there. So we're really excited to have been awarded this grant. There were 67 eligible applicants nationwide. Springfield was one of 13 awardees that got funding. We were competing with all 50 states and very large cities like New York City and Chicago and New Orleans. So we feel really lucky to have received funding. The HUD chose to fund 4 areas of the proposal that we submitted. Those areas were clean and redundant energy, safe and healthy rental housing, business and job opportunities, and community engagement. The city, this grant, so we received $17 million. This grant will leverage $63 million other dollars that are not necessarily city dollars. Most of that funding is private funding. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
Oh, yeah.
Councilor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Tina. Outstanding job in terms of getting this grant. Just the couple of questions I have is just in terms of how did you determine who your partners are going to be when you apply for the grant? Just let me finish. Just let me finish, please. Thank you. You got some job training in here, which was $450, I think $350,000, or $450 and $300,000, and they were partners. Was there RFP for that? How do you determine who your partners are going to be?
Sure. So
I mean, if the HUD doesn't tell you who your
sure.
partner's going to be.
So you'll probably recall this from the subcommittee meeting that we had. We did extensive public engagement. I'm sure you remember I went through everything that we did.
That's not
But
my
we
question.
also did a public RFP for our partners, and they responded, and that's how we selected them.
Really? And what was it? What were the two mentoring? Was it the two organizations?
For job training?
Yeah, for job training.
It was Tech Foundry and the Regional Employment Board were the folks that responded.
And I don't have any problem with Tech Foundry or Dave Cruz over there, but sometimes I have a problem with their other groups within broader community, New England Farm Workers Council, I think of the Urban League, I think of so a couple other organizations.
Sure.
An RFP was sent to them?
We did outreach. We publicly advertised it in the newspaper. We did a press release. We circulated information. We did extensive public outreach. I'm happy to go through the list of everything that we
I
did.
saw the list of all the individuals, but I said sometimes it's just that we always send them with the same cast of characters, so to speak, that always send them these grants. And one more thing here. I look under the business and job opportunity. The city's partners Develop Springfield. I have nothing against Develop Springfield. I was one of the lead sponsors to get Develop Springfield back in the city. And they're going to rehabilitate 2 adjacent buildings, create an entrepreneur center, an innovation center. Could you talk a little bit about that? And how was RFP sent out for that also?
Sure. So the city, yes, the Develop Springfield did respond to an RFP. The city released an RFP looking for...
Was there anyone else that responded to the RFP, or did only
We
one?
didn't receive any other responses under that category.
And how much was it? What was the total dollar amount on
The
that?
total amount that the city is contributing is $300,000, and that is leveraging, give me 1 second. It is leveraging, so the total project cost is $4.1 million, and the city's contribution is $300,000. So that's leveraging all the other funding.
That's for this job opportunity?
That is, the $300,000 is for the Innovation Center.
Yes.
So the city is creating a rental, basically providing a rental subsidy there to keep the rents low for startup businesses.
And the city's going to be in control of that?
In control of the Innovation Center? No.
Yeah.
No.
So
That
what?
would be Develop Springfield. They're the partner.
So we just put some money up.
Exactly.
And then
We're
made
putting
it
some
better
funding up
for them.
correctly to allow the rents to remain low in the Innovation Center.
I would think next time, I'm not trying to do your business, next time we do grants like this, we got to do a better job against the broader community. Because
Sure, we're always open to suggestions.
Yeah, because I've heard it from folks, same old thing, same
Sure.
people, get the grant.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say is we did an extensive year-long public outreach process as part of this. We reached out to approximately 200 local organizations, did many press releases, did several public meetings, did a subcommittee meeting with the council, sent out, mass emails and mail blasts, but, any suggestions you have for how we can reach out to more folks in the future, we're open to.
I'm not questioning that. We did that for input, and everybody had a wish list. East Forest Park wanted this, Hungry Hill, everybody wanted. That's not my point.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that when you do the RFP for the grant, for when someone's going to get some money,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm saying. When folks get money, when organizations, because in the city we got to play by the rules. Every organization in this city should have a bite out of the apple. That's not happening, in my humble estimation. Did a great job with the grant, securing the money. HUD doesn't tell you who your player's going to be when they do the grant. They say you do the money. So I'm just saying, it always ends up with the same, and I have nothing against Tech Foundry, Council Law. We had a meeting, great guy, does a great job. But he's been in the city, 2 years?
Sure.
And he ended up with $400,000. And other groups that have been here fighting, trying to do the same thing they do. I'm not trying to split hairs here, but it's sometimes we got to be a little more fair and a little more sensitive to what this really means when you start giving money to organizations. So I want to commend you on the great job you did. You did an outstanding job, but we have to do a better job, or when people are at the table, eating at the table, cutting the pie up, it's got to be done better. Because this is basically the same individuals that usually get it all the time. That would be the point I would make. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the grant? Here, Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Councilor Williams asked some good questions. I think some of them are answered here. The outreach part, Obviously, the city does a lot of outreach, and hopefully it's enough. It sounds like it is. But on the back of one of your sheets, I know there's a lot of paper put together, but if you look on the back, it spells out the 4 different parts of the grant. Clean and redundant energy sources, which has to do with the water shop's pond and creating water. What do we call it? Water? Hydropower there, which would be available for in the future if there were a disaster there. It would also possibly power Brookings if necessary. There's also the safe and healthy rental homes, which people can apply for to improve their rental homes, business and job opportunities, and also community engagement. Tina has the answers better than I do, but it's a tremendous opportunity for the city. $17 million. So that's what's being asked for us to vote on accepting the grant. Believe me, there were plenty of other financial orders that we'll have good questions on. This one, I think, in my view, is something we should approve. But I love to hear any other questions. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Edwards.
Very briefly, earlier in the public speak out portion, we had some people who were questioning or concerned about the portion of the resiliency grant related to hiring somebody that's one specific position as a coordinator, climate justice coordinator. Could you speak on that
Sure.
a little bit more so that they can answer some of their
So, sure, I think there are 3 points to that. So there were 3 things that I heard, or there were a couple of things that I heard mentioned tonight. One was they were looking for the city to fund a climate change action plan. That is part of this grant, and that will be funded. The other thing they were looking for is for someone to be a position to be created. The city has applied for a grant through the Rockefeller Foundation and their 100 Resilient Cities program to fund a chief resilience officer who would deal with issues related to climate change and resilience. We anticipate hearing about that in April. Additionally, I think it's worth noting that as part of this process, the mayor has also created a a resilience committee made up of various department heads throughout the city that would focus on climate change issues and resilience issues and would also deal with this grant and other issues as they come forward.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Okay. All those in favor of receiving the grant, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, Madam Clerk, item number 7, please. Long awaited for Hungry Hill.
I have here Van Horn Dam grant, $1 million.
Okay. Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Item 7, the Van Horn Dam grant, and item 8, I believe the Van Horn Dam grant number 7 is from the state, and number 8, used to be used for the same purpose, is from Mass Mutual. You notice they're both $1 million, and they provide $2 million of the $2.4 million, if I have it right, to do that project. $400,000 would need to be provided by the city. This is to improve the Van Horn Park Dam, which, if it were to let loose, let go, would put Bay State Medical Center at some risk. So I can't speak about it and as well as other people, but just so you know what those things are, 7 and 8 go together on that. Thank you.
Any other questions on the grant? Mr. Plant?
I think Councilor Allen summed it up perfectly of what we're trying to do. The $400,000 match that the city's going to put towards the project will come from a pay-as-you-go capital account to round up the $2.4 million for the overall project.
When can we expect it to begin?
Well, we have to spend some of the money by June 30th, so it's starting now.
Soon?
Great. Okay, all those in favor of receiving the grant, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 8.
It's the Mass Mutual NDRC grant in the amount of $1 million.
All those in favor of receiving the grant, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 9.
I have here $717,569.13, FY16 Shannon SR grant.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. President. Jennifer Winkler, Normandy Road Police Department.
Thank you.
The grant in front of you this evening is a collaboration between the department and local nonprofits, and it is used for prevention and suppression of gang-related activity amongst the youth in the community.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Allen?
Thanks, Mr. President. I believe the question that comes before us a lot, as Councilor Williams just mentioned before, about making sure the outreach is right. The typical question we ask every year when the Shannon grant comes up, or this SSY grant, is it the other one, is where was the money allocated? And I don't see it in our, what agencies were recipients of the money? Do you have that with you?
I do. This is John Lewis. He's the administrator of the grant, and he can answer any specifics for you.
Good evening.
So the agencies, there were 9 agencies this year to receive Shannon funding. They were MLK, Greater New Life.
How much? Can you give us the amount?
I'm sorry, what was
the amount?
The amount for MLK was $49,000. For Greater New Life was $47,000. Salvation Army $65,244. South End Community Center $46,000. Springfield Boys and Girls Club, Carew Street $46,000. The YWCA, Greater Springfield, Western Mass $32,000. Dunbar YMCA $51,000. This year we are not funding ROCA. New North Citizen Council $37,500, and the City of Springfield Parks Department $36,500.
Okay, Councilor Hurst?
Yes. What's the Parks Department's role in the Shannon grant?
Yes, so the Parks Department will serve youth ages 10 and up in their after-school programs. In addition, they'll have open gym and open recreation at 4 of the middle schools throughout the city.
Which 4?
Balliet, Forest Park, the school right down, the new school, Zanetti.
Is it Milton Bradley?
And Milton Bradley, yes.
That's 3.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Williams, Marcus Williams.
Yeah, let him go.
Mr. President, I just like to abstain from the vote since I actually wrote the grant for the YWCA of Western Mass.
Thank you and congratulations.
Vote no.
Councilor Bud Williams?
Good for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend the department for spreading this out. You've done a good job. Was there any reason why ROCA wasn't funded this year?
Yes, with ROCA's increased role with SSYI, we felt that they'll still provide us supports, but not as a funded partner for the FY.
Oh, no, I agree with what you did. I
Yeah.
was wondering why.
Yeah, it was a easy discussion. I think with what we're trying to do with Shannon and the age group that we truly want to represent, it just made the most sense that we discontinue funding ROCA for their services, but yet they'll still be very much a part.
I want to commend you for thinking outside the box. Thank you.
Councilor Ash?
Mr. President, I'm not sure if I'm required to abstain, but the YMCA.
Wow, another one too. Who you work with?
Any other questions? Councilor Hurst?
Just one more question. Did you reduce the funding that went out to the rest of the agencies, being that you didn't fund ROCA?
It actually increased. So we received a deduction of over about $103,000 from last year. So we're down $103,000. So it would have been tight with the funding we received. But with ROCA's, they would have received about $30,000. That didn't go to the police department. That didn't go to my salary. It went right back to the agencies.
Good.
Okay.
Mr. President, can I request
Councilor
can we get a copy of the award somehow? If you have a
Absolutely.
copy at our office, you make one right now. Oh, good.
Sure.
Mr. President, can the clerk make a copy of that,
Will
please?
the clerk
Thank
provide
you.
the council with the copy at
Thank
for
you.
convenience, maybe
Thank you.
tomorrow? Okay. Any other questions on the grant?
No, nice. Love it.
Okay. All those in favor of receiving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Councilor Williams, Councilor Ash, and myself, Madam Clerk. I am a member of the Board of ROCA. Okay. So the grant is accepted.
Thank you, Council.
What do we got?
Item number 10, Madam Clerk. Barely squeaked that one out.
I have here Health Services for the Homeless grant of $606,761.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening. Thank you, councilors. This grant is to continue to fund Health Services for the Homeless, which you know is our 330 Health Center, where we provide medical and dental care to individuals who are homeless and doubled up and housed insufficiently.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Item number 11, Madam Clerk.
FY16 state aid to public library, $281,070.
Good evening, Ms. Fogarty.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, councilors. I'm Molly Fogarty, Director of the Springfield Library. This funding is from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. It's an application that we submit every year, and we received all our funding because we met all our standards for public libraries in
Any questions from the
Massachusetts.
council? All those in favor of receiving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 12.
This is the FY16 mass call to grant $70,000.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening. As you know, the administration and the governor's office has made a commitment to cities and towns to assure that we are addressing the opioid overdose crisis. This money was a part of a grant that came from Governor Baker's office to make sure that we are dealing with the issues of opioids and prescription drugs with young people in our public schools.
Questions on the grant? All those in favor of receiving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if we could please call items 13 through 17, please, collectively.
Mass decontamination unit grant for $6,000. Elder donation $1,555. Artwork Springfield Library grant for $1,000. And Beantown jumpers for $500. Summer concert for $300.
Okay, all those in favor of receiving the grant say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 18.
I have here quitclaim deed, Southside Avon Place.
Good evening, Attorney Altman. Oh, good evening.
Yes. Amber Gould's City of Springfield Office of Housing. This is Avon Place is a property that the city's owned since 2009. It had a vacant property on it, and it was demolished last May. And the abutter next door is wanting to purchase the property to use as a side yard, and she's going to do some gardening and landscaping at the property.
Any questions? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
It's for quitclaim deed, Southside Avon Place. Justin Ernst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Shea. Absent, Councilor Twiggs.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash. Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved. Number 19.
I have here quitclaim deed, East Side Plainfield Street.
Ms. Gould?
Yep, this property, the city has owned since 2012, and the abutter for this property is looking to purchase it. This property is actually the only means of ingress and egress that he has to his business next door. So he's going to continue using it for that purpose. No changes will be made to the property.
How has he been accessing his business?
Our property. This property.
Any questions from the council? Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is on the quitclaim deed for East Side Plainfield, Justin Ernst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Shea. Absent, Councilor Twiggs.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Council Ramos?
Yes.
Yes, Council Marcus Williams?
Yes.
Yes, Council Gomez?
Yes.
Yes, Council Ash?
Yes.
Yes, Council Edwards?
Yes.
Yes, Council Walsh?
Yes.
Yes, Council Fenton?
No, more than sufficient. Order is approved. Item number 20, Madam Clerk.
I have an order for a contract for 3 years for the school food service.
Good evening, Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Patrick Roach from the School Department, and I'm here to request from the council that we be allowed to enter into a 5-year contract for our food service management company. By going out for 5 years, we can get better pricing. So this will be the third time we're going out for a 5-year contract. It allows companies to amortize their costs over 5 years, so we get better competition and better pricing at the end of the day. So we're requesting your permission to do that.
Any questions from the council?
Go ahead.
Councilor Twiggs?
A couple questions.
How are you?
Councilor Marcus Williams?
Go ahead.
How are you? What role does Sodexo play at this?
They'll hopefully be bidding on the contract as one of the vendors bidding on the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Twiggs?
Mr. President, I'm happy to rise and speak in favor of this item. Pat Gillette Brown?
Roach.
Burns.
Roach. This is Pat Roach.
Well, I'll give you a new name if you stay here long enough. But in the subcommittee, you gave a very interesting report, Mr. President, wherein we bringing all of our Springfield food service programs all into one. And I gave us a breakout of how many people, how many students are eating, where they're eating from, and how many lunch we're serving, and how many breakfast we're serving, and we might even do some dinners. And I mean, I was very impressed with it. Indicated that 31% increase in breakfast alone this year. And we know that students learn better when they're full. Maybe you ought to have some dinner for us when we come here. But not only that, but they're creating jobs. And so everything is going to be under one house, and I'm happy to let Pat explain this. This is very interesting to me because I didn't know it was coming about. Pat?
Excellent. So the item is actually a couple more later on the agenda. I think it's number 24, but if you'd like me to explain it now, I gladly will. With the food service warehouse that has kind of been in discussion for a few years. And
What is it? What?
Please.
Okay.
Then we'll take it out of order after this.
That's been in the works. What we've been able to do is come up with a plan to insource a lot of the stuff that we've been outsourcing to a bakery in Rhode Island, a vegetable processing center in Rhode Island, a freezer space in Chicopee, as well as in multiple satellite sites within our own district. We're hoping to build a central warehouse and a central kitchen to be able to bring all that programming in-house. And it'll actually save the school department's program over $500,000 a year and allow us to pay rent to the city that'll cover the city's whole entire bond. So we'll be able to do this at no cost to the city while also saving the school department money at the end of the day.
Thank you. Councilor Walsh?
Sounds like a good idea. In the past, as a council representative, the RFPs, is that still the case?
On the last time we did, usually when we do a 5-year contract, we do not do that. The last time we did do the food service one, Councilor Fenton served on it with us. And are you interested in being on the committee?
Keep the tradition going. I think it's always good for council to be, especially since the matters come before.
We would gladly have one of the members on the committee if somebody's interested.
Okay. Yep, I'll appoint and designate somebody for that purpose. It will be an RFP, Pat?
Yes, an RFP.
Councilor Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
The RFP is actually out right now, and so it's out posted, and so it's out there, and I think they did doing tours on Wednesday and everything, so we won't get the proposals for a few weeks.
Okay. Councilor Williams?
The RFP's already done?
Yeah, it's out. It's being advertised.
What are we voting on then if it's out?
We want your permission for the contract, to be able to enter into a 5-year contract.
I don't know. We're doing things a little differently than we used to do stuff. So we're just voting on. I apologize, Mr. President. I did have a list of questions, and I didn't realize that was on the agenda tonight for the Financial Committee, because I would have made that meeting. I didn't realize that this was on the agenda to be discussed previously to that meeting. So Sodexo is going to hopefully be a bidder?
Yes.
Because I know Sodexo has been very helpful in the broader community in terms of reaching out. And I wouldn't want to lose that, because that's a critical
They've been
piece.
an excellent partner to us
Yeah,
and
if
to
they're
the
not in
community
it-
as well.
If they're not in it, then they won't be.
Yeah,
Well, I mean-
I'm pretty sure they're going to be a bidder at the end of the day.
I know, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your bid, but this is very complicated. It really is. So we're going to buy a building for $7 million? Is that what I'm...
The purchase price is like around 2.4, and then there'd be some renovation costs as well.
And you're saying, in over how many years we'll be able to retain all that?
So we'd bond for 20 years, and we'd be able to bring in-house freezer space and vegetable processing and bakery and all the stuff that we currently have outsourced.
It sounds like a magnificent idea.
Yeah.
If it all goes according to plan. But if it doesn't, then the taxpayer's on the hook, basically. I think, maybe I could be wrong on this. I apologize, Mr. President, because I did have a list of questions, but, so you could have went into a 4 years, right? With 1-year renewals.
So what most districts do, and it's a best practice, it's recommended, is to do a 5-year contract because, the current vendor, Sodexo, would be the only vendor who could apply if we did a 3-year contract because no other vendor would want to come in and hire all those people and get office space and go through all the setup costs because it's kind of expensive. So they need to be able to amortize their costs over a 5-year period. And so even wanting to keep Sodexo as a good community partner and a vendor, we also want them to sharpen their pencils and make sure that there's some competition. And
I agree.
We get the best pricing at the end of the day.
So has the facility already been predetermined?
These are two separate items.
I understand, but I'm going to ask you a question on that.
Yes.
Well, I have you.
We have a facility.
You have a site already,
Yes.
and a price been negotiated on the site already? And you haven't even been approved? I don't understand. So you're negotiating a site without approval?
So we've done RFPs, we've done all sorts of property searches. The property search has been going on for 4 years.
Hoping that, so if this doesn't go through, then what happens?
Which item are you
The
referring to?
5-year lease.
The 5-year contract is completely separate from the building, so.
So if this doesn't happen, do you still do the building
Yes.
with a 3-year?
Yep.
And the numbers still
So
work?
the food service program is owned by Springfield Public Schools,
I
and so the
understand.
building will be a Springfield Public Schools building. So no matter who the vendor is, we'll be doing this at the end of the day. So even if Sodexo, even if we went with a 3-year contract or we went with a 5-year contract, it still makes complete sense to do the building at the end of the
So
day.
the city, it's a building owned by the city, but they're going to pay taxes and they're going to pay rent
Yes, we'll pay. The program's going to pay rent to the city.
to the city, okay.
Yes.
Because if it was,
We got approval from the USDA to do that. We pushed really hard to direct the USDA funds to purchase the site, and they didn't want us to do that. But they said the city could bond and purchase the site, and we could pay the city rent to cover the bond.
okay.
The same as we'd pay rent to a private vendor.
I really did. Next time I'll pay attention, Mr. President, because I didn't see an agenda that said the Financial Committee was meeting on this, because I certainly would have showed up for this.
Councilor Marcus Williams.
Just a quick question. So hypothetically, if Sodexo was the bidder that got this, would they continue the operation of the old building or the current building that they're operating out of right now? Or would they be moving into another building?
So they're two separate items, right? So if they win the contract, they'll be operating out of whatever facility we have at the time.
Right.
So right now they're renting a building, And if we purchase the building, they'll move over to run the building we purchase at the end of the day.
Okay. And Sodexo is, I mean, it's the largest provider of food services to our area schools, including some colleges as well. I'm quite sure. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, UMass is
UMass does their own program in-house.
Right. So with the new vendor coming in, hypothetically, again, they're not going to be as large as Sodexo, so they need as much building space.
The program needs this space because of the increase in meals and the volume that we're doing at the end of the day.
All right.
In the past year, we're serving 1.2 million more meals a year.
Right.
And this year, we're on track to serve an additional 600,000 more meals a year.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. In fact, did I get a copy of this? Did everybody here get a copy?
I will.
Because I think that would fill in some blanks.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have anything.
But let me try to shed some light on this.
Where's the copies? Man, these guys here is ridiculous.
What I got to do is get mad about this. I have one.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Just for clarity purposes, everybody, there's going to be two votes. This first vote is authorizing them to issue an RFP, award a contract for, how long is the term, Pat?
5 years.
5 years with 4 one-year options, so potentially 9 years.
No. So we're asking for 5 years, but it's really a 1-year contract with 4 options to renew.
Okay.
So every year we choose to renew. So, but it's up to 5 years.
Could have worded that a little bit differently.
So we won't have to do an RFP for 5 years.
So first vote is to authorize a 5-year contract, the terms of which we don't know, but the RFP has been put out already. And then the second vote is the bond to allow them to build a structure where some of these services will be housed. So.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize what we can do here tonight and what we don't have to do. Item 20 is to vote on a 5-year contract. It's separate from the next 4 items. Item 21, 21, 22, 23, and 24 are all bond authorizations. The 4th one of which is the bond authorization for this handout you just got. So we can separate these things, and I think, I can sense some anxiety around the table. There's a lot of money on the table with these 4 items, $18 million with the bond authorizations. So I'd like to ask Pat, if we did not approve this, say we approved the contract, but didn't approve the building bonding, would that put you on a bad schedule?
Of course, we would prefer it to be approved tonight, but we could come back to the next meeting or have another subcommittee meeting if we needed to.
And does that go for the other bonding things, TJ, as well? Because even though we met this afternoon, we didn't really go heavy through the bonding. We didn't have time in the Finance Committee.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that I'd say have a little bit more urgency would be the MSBA approved, because that's tied to a project funding agreement. And the police vehicles and DPW vehicles, they would argue that they need them very quickly, but I mean, if we want to get into more detailed conversation about it, we have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that I might suggest that we approve item 20 and put the other 4 in committee so we can have a deeper conversation about the bond authorization. Because TJ did give me this report today, analysis of outstanding debt. I received it this afternoon. Has anyone else received this?
No.
The whole council got it sent probably the beginning of February or end of January.
This is the same document?
Yeah, the same document that was emailed to the councilors.
Okay, so not defending everybody or whatever, but I mean, there's a lot of MGM stuff was flying at that time, and we were pretty tied up with that. So I might like to suggest that we put the other 4 items in committee. We meet again 2 weeks from tonight. We could have a Finance Committee meeting this week or next, and have everybody ask all the questions, get a good chance to do good government on all this debt service. There is a graph in here, when you get a copy of this or when you dig it out, there's a graph in here that shows in blue and red, how much debt service we have. The top of this graph is 40 million. The the blue represents the principal, the red represents the interest. I think if we all had a chance to read this and kind of take a deep breath on it, it seems reasonable to me, but it might not be reasonable that we vote on it tonight. So, Mr. President, I don't know how I make that motion, but I'm prepared to vote on number 20 tonight. But I think the next 4 items, in order to give them the full review, I think we should put them in committee and review our entire debt service at once and try to vote on it again in a couple of weeks.
Okay, so let's handle item 20, and then we'll entertain Councilor Allen's motion on each of the following 4 items.
Just
Councilor
a quick
Hurst.
question with respect to item 20. You said an RFP has already gone out, and does that specify that there's a 5-year contract, that you're looking to enter into a 5-year contract? Is that in the RFP?
Yes. So normally what happens is once the RFP goes out and you get the contract, we bring you're supposed to bring the contract to the council to get the council to approve the contract.
No.
We're doing it much earlier in the process.
Oh, no.
So if the council had any concerns, we would just do an amendment to the RFP.
But the RFP is already out.
Yep.
You're saying if the council had any concerns tonight, then you would just do an amendment.
We would do an
to the
addendum,
RFP.
to it already being out there.
Oh, no, you can't.
Councilor Walsh and then Councilor Williams.
President, there seems to be some concern or confusion with item 20, and I would like further discussion on it. So
Okay.
Second.
I know Councilor Williams brought us to put
But they're already
Seeing Council like for that committee so we all know what it is we're getting into and what's involved here.
Okay.
That's fair.
There's a motion to refer this matter to committee, seconded by
Second.
Councilor Williams.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to committee for item number 20, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I mean, that just courtesy thing.
Okay. Chair is a little in doubt here, Madam Clerk, so just for clarity, let's have a roll call.
So this vote is to, whether or not to send item 20 to committee or not. A yes vote is to send it, and a no vote is to leave it open. Councilor Ernst.
Yes.
Councilor Shea, absent. Councilor Twiggs.
No.
Councilor Allen.
No.
No. Councilor Rook. No. No. Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ramos.
No.
No. Councilor Marcus Williams.
No.
No. Councilor Gomez.
No.
No. Councilor Ash. No. No. Councilor Edwards.
No.
No. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Yes. Less than sufficient. Motion fails. Councilor Williams.
Just a question on that, since this is already out in the street, they've already passed something that we haven't even voted on.
Right.
That is, I don't know how you can do that. We haven't voted on this. It's gone. You're circumventing your own power. So if there's a problem with this and the 7 million doesn't pass, then what happens? Sir, don't do that, because next time I pull Rule 20, you should not go out and bid on individuals you don't have the permission of this body to enter into a 5-year lease. That is not fair to this body at all.
Councilor
Not at
Gomez.
all.
I'm just voting on the fact that I guess they're just trying to get a better deal, and I understand it's 2 separate issues, so I'm just going to speak on the facts that letting them just bid out on a 3-year deal from here till then, because since it's out already, that means that somebody can bid and you guys can already, if I'm understanding, you guys can already, you guys can accept the bid already while it's out there now? Am I understanding that?
It's a long process, right?
Okay.
It's a tight timeline, so you kind of have to go with the timeline because it involves vendor. They have to look over all your financial information. They have to look over all your equipment information. They have to do site tours of all the buildings. So regardless of the length of the contract, the RFP, just timeline-wise, has to go out on the street because they have to do all their vetting of what you're doing.
So from the initial contract was at 3 years, now you guys are just looking at 5 years to make sure that you guys get more for less?
No, the last 2 contracts we did were 5 years.
Okay.
When the control board was here in 2005, I think they put out a 5-year contract. And then the last time when Councilor Fenton was part of it, we did another 5-year contract. So we're just looking to do another 5-year contract. But legally, the council has to approve the actual contract, the document, not the RFP or anything, just the document at
All
the
right,
end
and
of the
then
day.
the proposal with the bond on the $7 million, that's just so you guys can stop outsourcing, we can start doing our own thing, and then you're saying that we're going to save $500,000 a year.
Yes.
Is that what you said, right?
Yes.
All right, so, and in the end, we're going to be banking a lot more money than spending more money.
Yes, sir.
That makes perfect sense on a business
Makes
mind.
sense to me.
Makes sense to me. We're going to be saving $500,000 over the process. All the money, the $7 million that we're going to make, we're going to get it back within the next 10 years.
Well, that was the understanding that I received in the subcommittee. I didn't realize that. You see, I brought up this building, and I probably was out of order when I did that, Mr. President, and I brought up the building, assuming that the building and the 5-year contract was all one. I mean, I'm a little stupid in that regard, but the question for us is the bonding piece of it, and I don't have a problem, as has been suggested by the chair of the Finance Committee, that we do the bonding stuff separate and it goes back to committee, and I'm in favor of that.
I just want to clarify, because it's been said a few times about my role in this. The problem when this came up last time is that we did the same exact thing.
Same exact
we
thing.
issued the RFP before we got permission from the council.
Oh,
so
we
that's
did?
why, yeah, so that's why, it got delayed a little bit. I don't know if there was committee hearings and things of that nature, and ultimately the resolution was I served as a designee from the council on the RFP committee. Is this going to come back before the council once the RFP selection committee makes a determination?
No.
Well, that's the problem.
That's the
So
You guys have no.
that's okay. So everybody
remember from
understands
5
the
years
issue.
ago?
The motion to committee has failed.
Honest to
And is there any other discussion on it? Councilor Walsh.
Follow up on Councilor Williams' point that this is something that the council is supposed to vote on, and total
Mr. President.
with respect to the Springfield City Council to come forward with something you've already done that you need our permission for. And what does that say?
Councilor, to answer the question as it relates to the council's authority, we don't typically come to the council for authority for the RFP portion of it. We're doing that now just as a way that we can put it into the contract. We typically come for a contract when we want to execute a contract. So we just recently did it for Motorola. How we got their contract. We came to you with a contract saying we want to do a 5-year contract because we can amortize the cost of the police software over 5 years. This wasn't done as a way for the procurement piece because we cannot slow down the procurement schedule. However, we can issue addendums to the procurement that if this body said, you know what, we're not interested in doing a 5-year contract for whatever reason, we could then issue an addendum number 1 to all potential bidders that instead of being a 5-year contract, this is a 3-year contract. So that's kind of it's a process thing that we're trying to deal with, a timeline issue. And I recognize the council feeling that they're making this vote, in haste, but it's something where we can bring the contract back and talk about the process we've gone through.
In advance. How do you?
You're supposed to vote for them. I think we should change the way we do this because you do need approval from the city council, but it's backwards. You assumed a lot, I think, in the way this is presented, and I do think that shouldn't come to the council for something that they need to do.
They've already done it.
It's already been done.
The point that I'm making, Councilor, is that it doesn't need to be done in the sense of now. What we need is a contract for 5 years approved.
But TJ, you're doing site visits like in
No, I
5
understand.
days, and you've already issued the RFP,
Mr.
assuming
President.
that we're going to say yes. So I mean, it's
Mr. President, I understand the optics of it. I'm just saying from a functional point of view, we need the contract approved for 5 years, not the procurement piece. And so that's what we're debating. And if for future reference, we want to put that into the timeline, we absolutely will do that for any of the other contracts that we're going for.
Councilor Ramos and then Councilor.
Mr. President, I was under the impression that this would come back to us to approve the person the agency that wins the award. I thought that was the way that we dealt with the school busing contract, if I remember correctly.
20.
We approved.
From 20.
the right to go out for a 5-year contract, and then we approved the award of the contract. But if that's not the case, then if there's another motion for committee, I would certainly support that, because I think that we have to play a role in this.
Move for reconsideration. Move for reconsideration.
Okay, there's a motion to reconsider the motion to committee made by Councilor Williams. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Councilor Twiggs on the motion.
And hope that it will not move to reconsider, and hope that it will prevail. Or
Will prevail.
This is different from a traditional reconsideration motion because we haven't disposed of the underlying issue.
Right.
So we can just entertain it without dealing with in hopes that it will
I
prevail or will fail.
I understand.
Councilor Marcus Williams.
For clarity, so I apologize. Is it the standard procedure for this body to approve the I guess the entity that received an award for any particular agency?
If it's over 3 years.
If it's over 3 years.
That's the law.
All right. So in asking us to make this move tonight, you're pretty much giving the green light to those particular vendors to say, hey, this is happening. You can now competitively bid for it.
So the intent of tonight was to confirm a 5-year contract so the bidders know that they have a 5-year contract that they can work towards. So it doesn't preclude Aramark, Chartwells, any of those other food service vendors that may want to get into the Springfield market. And so what the thinking is now, since we're under a tight deadline, was to put out the RFP, ask for the city council's approval for a 5-year contract. And if the council does not, if the council wants us to bring it back, the contract to award a 5-year contract, we are more than happy to do that.
Deadline?
The deadline is June 30th. When does the food service expire? June 30th is the deadline. So we need a new vendor in place for July 1st. A potential new vendor.
And when was the RFP released?
When's the RFP due? When's the RFP due? Yeah, so there's 30 days RFP, then you got to do the whole review committee thing. So that puts it out to what? April, mid-April, and then you got to do a few other pieces to it through the review, interviews, presentations, all those things for the potential bidders.
And just in regards to what Councilor Williams stated, it would be nice when these things happen, more organically, in the sense that the city council body is made aware at the outset, because now, in terms of dealing with deadlines, which I'm very familiar with, it's now you're in a haste to get this out and make sure people have enough, or the entities have enough time to apply. So, just going forward,
Yeah, so, to answer numerous councilors' questions, we have no problem bringing the contract back for ratification, consideration, whatever term you want to use, and then we can explain the process, how many people were interviewed, how many people applied or submitted RFPs. We can do that if that kind of gets the council to be okay with the concept. And then for any other future 5-year contracts, we'll build it into the schedule to come to the council prior to release of the RFP.
Okay, so Councilor Hurst.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. You're saying that there would be certain bidders that would be eliminated if we went with how it is now.
A 3-year. If we went with no, there's a 5-year. You're opening up to more bidders with 5 years because people look at that and spread their risk over 5 years, as opposed to if you just had 3 years, a newer vendor might say, you know what, to get up and running in 3 years isn't worth the capital investment or the investment in general.
Got it.
Councilor Williams.
Mr. President, thank you. And I want to keep beating the dead horse. But TJ, you're running down saying the timeline and all this. You've looked at sites, you've reviewed sites, you've been doing all this due diligence.
The site piece is separate. That's the building piece.
That's still part of it for us.
And I will comment on the process for the building. And
I think, Mr. President, I don't know what we did last time, but this body, according to what Councilor Ramos said, we should have a part. You should be able to vote when they come back on the contract with vendor A or vendor B. This way, they determine it. They come back and say, oh, by the way, we picked vendor A. You have no say-so. You have no say-so in the process. None at all. So I agree with move for reconsideration, and we put this in committee so they can come back. They still can go out, they still can put the 5-year out, 3-year, and they still can bring it back to this body. And this body has a final vote on the process. You can't put the cart before the horse. I don't know, the cart's before the horse. And this administration is very good at saying, oh, by the way, we're down our last 2 weeks. We got 3 weeks, 3 days. We can't. It's always the case. They got to start doing these things a little differently. Like Council Walsh, bring this to us, TJ, in a timely manner. I have no information on this. Is the first I've seen this right tonight.
Right.
I know Councilor Allen.
And Mr. Council, that issue actually is fine going to committee to discuss it further. We did have a finance committee meeting because we know it's a big deal. And to Councilor Allen's point, we're asking for $18 million worth of bond authorization
that's
tonight.
That's a lot of money. What do we just?
And I know the due diligence that we've done on the administration side and in the Office of Management and Budget, and I need the council, obviously, with the authority they have to authorize debt, to understand where we're going, why we're thinking, what we're thinking, and how it's affordable. So if we could separate those two issues and solve this one, or figure out what the solution is on this one.
That's right. Okay, so there's a motion to reconsider the motion to committee, which was made and seconded. We're going to do a voice vote on the motion to reconsider. If that passes, then we will reconsider the motion to committee. Does everybody understand that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion for reconsideration on the motion to committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Okay, the ayes have it. We're going to reconsider the motion to committee, and we're going to do it by roll call as we did last time, Madam Clerk.
Okay, and this motion is to to send to committee or stay open.
This is to send item number 20 to committee.
Item number 20.
Right.
Justin Erst.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Shea. Absent. Councillor Twigs.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Rook. No, Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Ramos.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Ash.
No.
No, Councillor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Walsh. Yes. Yes, Councillor Fenton.
Yes, more than sufficient. Matter is referred to the Finance Committee.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that the following items be referred to committee. Item number 21, 22, 23, 24, 125?
20.
Item 21 through 24.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to have that standing motion, but we're going to call the items individually, Madam Clerk. So item number 20 first, please.
Item number 21 is a bond authorization for Brandt, Stern, and Walsh for $9 million.
Okay, there's a motion made by Councillor Twigs to refer this matter to the Finance Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Williams. Councillor Ramos on the motion.
Just want to confirm that there won't be any unnecessary delays if we refer this to committee.
I guess the big closes are due in 30 days, so right now it's on the street as a 5 years, so I'm not sure if we should be issuing an addendum at this point, or if we should keep it at 5 years and then issue an addendum and an extension.
I'm talking about items 21 through 24.
Oh, sorry about that. So, yeah, no, this one, yeah, I prefer the MSBA ones be done, but at this rate, I think looking at it holistically is probably makes the most sense for all the councils that want to show up for a conversation about all the projects related to that.
The MSBA. What are you saying?
Is that one of them?
Yeah, that is the one I said I prefer that one. Okay. But.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the motion to committee? All those in favor of the motion to the Finance Committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 22, Madam Clerk.
Bond authorizations, police vehicle for $1,125.
Okay, motion made to committee by Councillor Twigs. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Ramos. All those in favor on the motion to the Finance Committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. 23, Madam Clerk.
Bond authorization, $923,925.
Okay. Motion made to the Finance Committee by Councillor Twigs. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Marcus Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Number 24.
$7 million, bond authorization, food service.
Motion made to the Finance Committee by Councillor Twigs. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Adam Gomez. All those in favor of the motion to committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 25.
I have here transfer of unexpended bond proceed Putnam Vocational Tech for $1 million.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Plant.
Where do we get that money from?
Thank you, Mr. President. So you guys may recall I came to the body probably about a year ago asking for authorization for some ineligible costs at Putnam. So now it's about $5.8 million or so. We're in the process. So we got the authorization, we issued the debt, and then we subsequently kept going after the MSBA for reimbursement for some of the costs that would be deemed eligible. So now we've reconciled all the accounts, and the balance in the account is $5.8 million. And typically when you transfer unexpended bond proceeds, you go from a 20-year, if you issued it for 20 years, you transfer it to a purpose for 20 years. And I don't know if anyone's been out on the front steps of City Hall these days, but we have the orange Jersey barriers out there. They're in dire need of repair. And so we're hoping to take $1 million from the unexpended bonds related to the Putnam and transfer it over to a municipal City Hall account for us to do municipal improvements at City Hall, namely the steps, but if there's other money left over, we would do other projects within.
Councilor Hurst.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to send this to the Finance Committee as well. It seems to me that there probably are a lot of capital improvements that could be done throughout the city, whereas this may or may not be a priority, but it seems to make sense to me at the very least to have TJ and his team come before the Finance Committee and explain why they made this particular recommendation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Ramos. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to the Finance Committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 26. Madam Clerk is going to remain in the General Government Committee. Item number 27, please.
I have here an act filing vacancy for ward seat.
No, item number 20. Yeah, we're going to keep that one in committee. Item number 26. I think we still have to hold a committee meeting on that one, right?
27.
So we're going to call item number 27.
It's on the back of your...
Regarding boards and committees.
Boards and commissions.
You got this?
27.
Huh?
Your resolution.
Yeah.
Amending the residency ordinance.
No.
No, boards and committee
Hey, you can use
appointments.
mine.
Yeah, so item 27 is mine. I just lost my paper here at work for some second, so I just needed a little hand from Councilor Twiggs.
But Councilor Allen, before you start, I just want to make sure that the clerk calls the item. Do we have it, Madam Clerk?
Yes, the ward seats of the city council I have at 27.
On my agenda, it shows as item number 26. So what we're looking for is a resolution regarding boards and committees.
27 on mine.
There we go.
27 on ours.
Okay, I have here a resolution regarding the boards and committees and appointments.
Thank you. Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. So we got a couple items to go here. These are not financial. This is about board and committee appointments. We certainly all went through the recommendations by the mayor for the Historical Commission recently. It wasn't one of our prettier meetings. And we've approved recently a couple people to the License Commission. The point of this resolution, which I'd ask your support for, is to point out three other commissions which are not staffed. We've got a resolution to this effect. I'll read it to you and ask for your support or discussion. Whereas city boards and commissions are established under both municipal ordinance and state law, and whereas boards and commissions serve a purpose of fostering public participation in government and overseeing various issues of concern to the public, and whereas there are many positions on boards and commissions in the city of Springfield which have gone unfilled, and whereas examples of important boards and commissions that have not had appointments by the mayor in years include the Youth Commission, the Residency Compliance Commission, and the Ethics Commission. And whereas the law requires that positions on these boards and commissions be appointed by the mayor. And whereas without appointments by the mayor to these boards and commissions, no quorum can exist. And now therefore be it resolved that the Springfield City Council hereby urges the mayor to make all appointments or reappointments under his authority to the Youth Commission, the Ethics Commission, the Residency Compliance Commission, and all other boards and commissions. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on the resolution?
Just can I add
Councilor
one?
Williams?
Can I add one? Human relations. Amend that, Mr. Chairman. Could I add the human relations to your Councilor Allen?
Yeah, we certainly can add that. What we did was specify 3 specific ones and then mention that all of them be filled.
But I want to specify that one. I want to
We
specify
certainly
that.
can do that. Yep.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so
Council.
there's a motion to add the human relations.
Human relations.
Human Relations Commission.
Human relations, right.
Human Relations Commission to the 4th whereas, Madam Clerk. And we'll insert that right after Residency Compliance Commission. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilor Edwards. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yep, we're not done yet. We're just... Councilor Walsh.
We just had a discussion about the role of the city council, what our responsibilities are, what our jurisdiction is. And I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this because it is the authority of the mayor to make appointments to boards and commissions. And the fact that they're unfilled, I don't know what his priorities are, but I'm just very uncomfortable with this. And I do not want to support it because it is the role of the mayor to appoint people to boards and commissions, whatever his timeline is. We don't like it, we don't like it, but we have our role, he has his role, and ours is to approve the appointments when they come to us, timely or not.
Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Certainly respect Councilor Walsh's opinion on this. I just feel that our role includes being a checks and balance on good government in this city. And if we see something that's not being done in a way that we think it should, and where it's a state law to fill the positions, we're not forcing the mayor to do it. We're just hopefully voting on a resolution to request him to do it. While we sit here and things don't get filled, work doesn't get done that could be getting done. And fewer people are involved in the government as a result, and I think we all benefit when we have more of our citizens involved in our government. That's the purpose of the resolution, and certainly respect anybody's opinion to disagree with it or not vote for it or not support it. But that's my view of why we put in it, why I put in it. Hopefully we'll have the support of a majority. Thank you.
Councilor Ash.
Mr. President, I wonder if it makes sense under Councilor Walsh's opinion that maybe there are circumstances, maybe there are reasons that some of these boards haven't been filled, maybe there hasn't been active interest in some of these boards, maybe you can't fill them, who knows? Maybe it makes sense to have a committee meeting, let the mayor's office come in and explain. If not, then we come back and say that we're certainly in support of filling these whenever possible. Maybe there are circumstances why that these aren't being filled.
Councilor Marcus Williams.
Just to speak to Councilor Ash's point, I've had several youth come to my doorstep in regards to wanting to join the youth committee, which is in a lot of ways very similar to this body. Of course, not exercising the same authority or power, but in a model environment it's such. So I would have to say I feel like my trepidation is that if these boards don't get filled now, or the recommendation is put forth that they never will. So,
Councilor Hurst. Councilor Hurst, and then Councilor Twiggs.
I have to concur with Councilor Williams, and I know the residency issue is coming up, but there's a Residency Compliance Commission, and that is an avenue for the public to go to this particular body and actually make sure when they receive complaints that people are not following the residency requirement to actually investigate those particular complaints. So I do think it's critically important that we encourage the mayor to fill these particular positions. In addition, I would love to add some sort of language in that encourages the mayor to make the process a little bit more transparent and more inclusive. It would seem to me like there would be a way in which we can advertise the fact that there are some openings on a particular commission, and I would imagine that very similar to the Youth Commission or the Ethics Commission, that you would get a number of people from the community who would want to be a part of these boards and commissions. Thank you.
Any other, Councilor Twiggs?
Yes, Mr. President, since I've been on this council, I mean, these positions have been vacant. What the heck? I mean, you need more time to figure out if you're going to appoint somebody, how much time you need. The fact of the matter is, everything ought to be working in a responsible kind of way. Now, it seems to me that the youth committee is an important committee. I mean, we're having problems with the youth, and it's because they're not involved, and if we involved them, we probably wouldn't be having as much problem. And also, the Human Relations Commission used to be a very active commission in the city. And so I think what Councilor Allen has recommended here just make a lot of sense to me. Hey, you want us to do our job? You want us to do diligent? We're telling you to do diligent and appoint somebody to them. If you don't want to appoint them, then give the authority to us.
Councilor Edwards.
Actually, I rise in support of it, but I just don't think this is overly, needs to be as controversial as seems to suggest in the tone of the chamber today. Obviously, this is not binding, and it is an open meeting where the mayor will hear that we are making a suggestion. And it could be construed as a friendly suggestion that all committees should have value. I wouldn't want to be a citizen of the city of Springfield and appoint to any committee and then have members of this chamber belittle my appointment or the value of me taking my personal time to be appointed to a committee that isn't any value or has no purpose except for theater. So the thing is I don't see that this has to be considered or construed as controversial on the mayor's part. It is a suggestion that if these committees are standing, that they should be filled, and this committee or this body is simply suggesting to the mayor that he, at his own convenience, take the amount of time to actually fill the boards. And I guess the only problem I would have is that when we imply that one committee is more valued than the other, and none of these committees being paid, that the citizens that would be appointed might be take it as an affront that they're wasting their time being appointed to a committee. So I just will stand in support of this resolution going forward. The mayor will hear about it. It will be a part of the public record. And to the point that was raised in terms of making people aware, it's a public knowledge. This committee, the committee of the whole, can publicize a listing of all the committees that are not fully seated. And that way people will have an opportunity to know that their mayor or whoever is there holds that office over there has not filled those seats, and then they can make the inquiry as to the mayor of their interest. Thank you.
Mr. President, I don't have an issue with respectfully asking the mayor to appoint and fill these vacancies. The question that I have is, knowing what I know about the appointing bodies to the License Commission and what we learned from the Historical Commission is that the mayor is not the absolute power and the appointing authority for some of these commissions. And are we certain, so my question is, are we certain that the mayor is the absolute power in the appointing power to these commissions that we're referring to? And if not, then it may make sense to amend the language to include the mayor and or any other appointing authority to make the appointments and fill the vacancies.
Okay. Councilor Williams, then we'll get back to what Councilor Ramos said.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I just I thank the body for just bringing it to the attention of the mayor. Maybe things are MGM and all other stuff. You really didn't get a good chance to look at this. But there are certain commissions that the mayor appoints that this body confirms. So we have some authority, some skin in the game, so to speak. License Commission, Housing Authority, Water Commission, there's a few more that we have. That's because the mayor suggests the name, this body doesn't have to accept the name. We do have the responsibility on some commissions needs council approval. I don't know all of them. I think Councilor Allen has some of them. But we do have a responsibility. And just because the mayor submits a name, it's not automatic. I've been on the council, they have refused some nominees. Harold Chernak was on the License Commission. They tried to replace him. Took 20 years because the council would never confirm. I'm just telling you, this body would never confirm any other person. So this body does have power. We do have the ability to confirm and not confirm. And sometimes you have to do that in order to get the mayor's attention, so he'll be, more friendly to this body. Thank you.
Okay. So Councilor Ramos has asked that we entertain an amendment to the now therefore portion of the resolve. And so after the word mayor, we would insert or any other appointing authority.
Yeah, second.
Seconded by Councilor Ash. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
No. Okay, so ayes have it. It's amended. Any other discussion before we take a vote on it? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Okay, the ayes have it. Resolution is adopted as amended. Item number 28, Madam Clerk, our final item.
I have here an order amending residency ordinance.
Councilor Williams.
I don't think we have, I didn't even see it.
Not in my packet either. Okay. Do you have a copy of it?
Attorney Mullen.
Councilor Williams, will we
President,
provide the body with copies?
I want to yield to Attorney Moore, who I think did a good job, so he can explain, and I'll talk after Attorney Moore talks. I think he went to make copies. But in essence, Mr. President, we're trying to amend this to start with department heads and deputies in terms of living in the city of Springfield, and also have the compliance piece with this. I'm surprised Mr. Mahoney isn't here tonight. Maybe he's up in Ludlow, I don't know. But I thought he would be here, because I did have several questions for him, Mr. President. So I hope we'll pass this and maybe have a committee meeting on it.
Okay.
If Attorney Moore.
Well, Attorney Moore.
I'm going to yield to you, Attorney Moore, to explain what this simply does.
Just a summary of what the...
No, up there. Up there. Or you want to go there? No, you're up there.
I don't get to use this one that often, so I'm going to step back to this one. I like this one. Okay, what's being proposed in front of the council this evening is an amendment to Section 13 of Article 2 of Chapter 73. Chapter 73 is residency ordinance requirements for the city. The specific section deals with waivers, and what this proposed amendment states is that as of, you know what? This looks like what you're getting is is an older version of this. I think the one I submitted contains a different date. You'll see the January 1st, 2014 date. That should really be April 1st of 2016. That's one of the amendments to this section to make it specifically applicable to people who are going to be promoted and or hired after that date, April 1st, 2016. The ordinance contains statements stating that department heads and deputy department heads shall not be eligible for waiver of residency requirements. It also contains language that discusses the responsibility of, I believe it's the Mayor Post
Director
Council.
of Human.
Yeah, there'd be responsibility for any waivers granted by the mayor to be forwarded directly to the city council for the purposes of notification. I'm not sure that was a requirement in the original ordinance. So that's basically what's before the body tonight. I know it's a long, somewhat complex ordinance. This is really only one section that's looking to be amended this evening.
With the council's indulgence, I'll just speak to it, because I wrote this several years ago. This passed this body and then was vetoed by the mayor. This is that same legislation.
That's correct.
It does two things. It eliminates the ability to grant a waiver for a department head or deputy, and secondarily, if a waiver is going to be granted, it creates a transparent process whereby an employee must make a request to the Director of Labor Relations. He must inform the council and the mayor. The position must be reposted, and then the statistics regarding the result of that reposting must be reported to the mayor, who can then, in his sole discretion, decide whether or not to grant the waiver. If the waiver is granted, the council gets notice. That would be That's it.
Thank-
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President, for articulating that. And according to the Union News yesterday, there are 8,682 employees, seasonal and temporary, in the city of Springfield. 1,500 are full-time, with 5,000 going to the school department. If Mr. Mahoney were here tonight, I would have made a request to get a copy and a list of all deputies and all department heads that are in the city of Springfield for the notification of verifying residency. Two just appointed, two deputies just appointed that don't live in the city of Springfield. They said they got a year to move into the city of Springfield. I've been told, I don't know for a fact, that there are people that have been appointed deputies and district chiefs and all that do not live in the city of Springfield, and it's been more than a year. So if Mr. Mahoney were here tonight, I am still going to make the request that all department heads and deputies and chiefs and deputy chiefs and seniors and all that, a list of their residency. And if it's more than a year, I'm going to ask that they be removed. I mean, it's about time, Mr. President. Mr. Mahoney. I know. If Mr. Mahoney were here tonight, I would have asked him those questions, Mr. President.
Councilor Gomez.
All right. No, this document, this amendment is something that I feel like we need to look at and support strongly. Just reported on the Republican, over 300 employees make over $100,000 in the city of Springfield. Wow. If I'm correct, I think if I read that correctly, it was over the weekend. I kind of, want to know out of those 300, whoever make even close to that, if they do live, which one of those or those that do live in the city of Springfield have received a waiver, and how many waivers they have received. I think it's important that our mayor and who we hire, that we're investing in people and which are investing in other communities and not necessarily ourselves. And it's important now that we start paying it forward and making sure that our people and our residents are getting paid to do the right job. And also I wanted to point out that I want to also talk about the quota on the percentages of minorities receiving these waivers, if they're even, you can even count them on one hand. Some of these deputies and commissioners, it's something that we want to empower our citizens. We want to make sure that our citizens are being heard, and that's something that is been screaming for more than just today. It's been screaming for years. And I think this body needs to start putting our foot down, that our residents need to start being hired.
Good job.
Hey, Councilor Ramos.
Mr. President, for Councilor Williams, does this apply to all city employees?
Yeah.
Like teachers?
That's cool.
No, teachers, no, they're excluded.
What do you, be a little bit more specific? What do you mean?
Does this apply to all city employees, or as Councilor Williams mentioned, deputies and department heads? Is this for all?
Okay, so the ban on waivers only applies to deputies and department heads hired after April 1st, 2016.
So any of them before it doesn't count?
Right. And with respect to the remaining provisions regarding waivers, that would apply to anybody else who is otherwise under the jurisdiction of the residency ordinance, which excludes anybody who was hired before 1996, anybody who already has a waiver, or anybody who's already currently under the employ of the city of Springfield.
So the requests in writing that have to be provided to the labor relations person, forwarded to the mayor and the city council, those requests have to come from anyone that requests a waiver?
Yes.
Is that the way it's written? Look, I'm all for residency requirements. I'm an advocate for residency requirements. I wish, all employees of the city of Springfield lived in our city. But that's the part that I feel uncomfortable with is it necessary to require every person asking for a waiver to share that information with 13 members of the city council. You know,
Well,
if we're talking about a department head, then I think that makes sense because of the position, how much power and influence goes into that position, how much money those folks are paid. But to require every city employee that's asking for a waiver to file that with the mayor and the city council, I think that's a little bit much. I don't feel comfortable with that part of the ordinance.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Ash.
Mr. President, could you just briefly explain the process again if there
How it
was
works? Okay, so it prohibits future department heads and deputy department heads from getting a waiver. It's a black and white line. It's not a gray line. Department head, deputy department head can't get one in the future. If you've already got one, you're good. For future waivers for other groups of employees who are not department heads or deputies, it says that you have to request in writing the waiver. That request goes to Bill Mahoney. Bill Mahoney then forwards it to the council and to the mayor so that we know that this request is being made. Subsequent to that, Bill's required to repost the position for 7 days. Okay? When the results of that reposting come in regarding who applied, where they live, what their qualifications are, Bill provides that information to the mayor. Based on that information, the mayor will then make a decision on his own as to whether or not to grant the waiver. And then he has to notify us of what his decision was. That's all it is. Currently, there is no process. Some of them are written, some of them are verbal, some of them are 6 months, some of them are 6 years, some of them are forever. Councilor Gomez, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So this amendment is only for deputy commissioners and commissioners hired after April 1st. Anybody that is hired entry level or let's say at a managerial capacity, they don't have to go through this amendment, right?
Yes, they do.
They do?
So they do. So if you're a department head or a deputy, you never get to apply for a waiver anymore. There's no more waivers.
There's no more waivers for them. Okay,
right.
Perfect.
So this is only if you're an entry-level person and you want to live somewhere else and you have to apply for a waiver, this is creating a process by which you do it.
Okay, so this is for all employees.
Right.
Okay, good. Confusion over. Thank you.
Unless you're otherwise exempt. So like teachers are exempt.
Right, teachers are exempt.
Collective bargaining units are exempt unless they otherwise contract in it. Councilor Ash. Yes, for that provision. The other intent is to stop deputies and department heads from getting them in the future. Councilor Williams.
But I want to thank you. I want to thank the body for the questions are very, very good. But I think this kind of like stops the bleeding. And there are individuals now who have been hired who don't have a waiver, but have a year to move into the city. Mm-hmm. And some of those individuals have exceeded the year. And they're still living outside the city, but they're still working. We can still deal with that. They have no waiver. They've hired, like the 2 new deputies that were hired at the Springfield Police Department. They live outside the city. They're supposed to have a year to move into the city. Now, in the fire department, you're hearing that there are district chiefs who have been hired who live outside the city. So we got a lot of cleaning up to do. But I want to thank this body for their patience.
Councilor Ash.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilor Hurst.
I'll just say, and I agree with Buddy. I mean, there have been a number of people who have come up to me recently who have said that not only in the police department but as in the fire department as well, when it came to district chiefs as well as deputy chiefs, there are some people who are living outside of the city where their term of a year has expired. And I also think it's incumbent upon us, not only just to pass this residency ordinance, but if we hear that, we need to bring that to the attention of Mr. Mahoney, to the mayor, and to the fire commissioner or police commissioner or whoever the department head is, which is what it says in the actual ordinance. And so as opposed to, and I know a lot of people have been coming out front on this issue, but we need to take it and make it incumbent upon us to actually advocate for the enforcement of residency and the implementation of what is currently going to be law.
Councilor Gomez.
One more thing I just have to put out. If us as ward councilors have to live in our districts, I think one thing has to be said, that our people need at least live in our city. We're not telling them where to live, but at least within the city limits. And if we're solely are to live within our respected wards because we have to represent these wards, I think that has to reflect all over our city.
Okay. Councilor Allen?
Mr. President, just a reminder for everybody, some people who were not here when we did this before, this isn't a replica of what we voted on 3 years ago, maybe? Yeah, we voted on it, we passed it, it went to the mayor vetoed it, and it came back to the council, and we needed 9 votes to override the veto, and we only had 8.
That's right.
So that's what's at stake. So remember the importance of your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Can we have a motion to amend the date of January 1st, 2014 to be April 1st, 2016? Motion made by Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Gomez. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? You guys have it. Okay, any other discussion on the ordinance as amended? Okay, this is on first step to Committee on Ordinances. It will require 2 more steps. If it passes, we'll dispose of it at our next meeting. All those in favor of approving this ordinance and referring it to the Committee on Ordinances say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. So any more business to bring before this body, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, this body will stand adjourned until Monday, March 21st. Monday, March 21st.
Thank you, Melvin.
Excuse me? I did good to